Gabby Petito was only 22 years old, but to the outside world, she appeared to be living the dream. Blonde-haired, soft-spoken, and full of curiosity, Gabby was a young travel blogger documenting her life on social media. Her Instagram showed sunsets over deserts, smiling selfies beside national parks, and captions filled with hope and freedom. She wasn't just traveling, she was selling a dream known as van life. In the summer of 2021, Gabby and her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, set off on a cross-country road trip across the United States in a white Ford van. The plan was simple: travel, vlog their journey, and build a future together. To thousands of followers, their relationship looked adventurous and romantic. Two young people chasing freedom, love, and the open road. But behind the camera lens, reality was far more complicated. Gabby and Brian had been together for several years. They met in New York, where Gabby grew up close to her family. Friends described Gabby as emotional, creative, and sensitive, someone who deeply cared about others and wanted harmony in her relationships. Brian, on the other hand, was often described as controlling, intense, and easily frustrated. As the trip progressed, cracks began to show. Gabby's social media posts slowly became less frequent. Her smile, once carefree, began to look forced. In videos, Brian often interrupted her, corrected her, or dismissed her ideas. Subtle moments, easily overlooked, hinted at imbalance. Gabby appeared anxious, trying hard to keep peace, while Brian dominated conversations. This contrast between social media perfection and real-life tension became one of the most haunting aspects of the case. In August 2021, those hidden struggles surfaced publicly for the first time. Police in Moab, Utah, responded to a 911 call reporting a domestic dispute involving a couple traveling in a van. When officers pulled Gabby and Brian over, their body cameras recorded what would later become critical evidence. Gabby was visibly upset. She was crying, shaking, and struggling to breathe. She apologized repeatedly, to the officers, to Brian, to everyone. She blamed herself for the argument, calling herself mean and too emotional. Brian, meanwhile, appeared calm and composed, joking with officers and presenting himself as rational. The body cam footage revealed a disturbing dynamic. Gabby admitted she was scared Brian would leave her stranded. She explained that arguments had been escalating, fueled by stress, isolation, and constant proximity. Brian admitted to grabbing her face during the argument but minimized his actions. Officers noticed marks on Brian's face and scratches on his arm, while Gabby showed signs of emotional distress. Despite the warning signs, police ultimately decided to separate the couple for the night, but they allowed them to continue the trip together afterward. No arrest was made. No protective order was issued. No long-term intervention occurred. That moment would later be described as a missed opportunity. Experts reviewing the footage after Gabby's death pointed out classic signs of emotional abuse. Gabby taking blame, excessive apologizing, fear of abandonment, and Brian's calm demeanor masking controlling behavior. But at the time, these red flags were misunderstood or ignored. After the Utah incident, Gabby briefly stayed at a hotel while Brian kept the van. Within days, they reunited and continued traveling. To the public, everything seemed normal again. Photos resumed. Smiles returned. Captions spoke of love and adventure. But privately, something was breaking. Friends later revealed that Gabby felt overwhelmed and isolated. She missed her family. She struggled with anxiety. She was financially dependent on the trip's success and emotionally dependent on Brian. The van, once a symbol of freedom, had become a confined space where tensions had nowhere to escape. By late August, communication with Gabby's family became irregular. Her mother received strange messages, texts that didn't sound like Gabby. Then, suddenly, the messages stopped altogether. What no one knew at the time was that the smiling girl on Instagram was already in danger. The warning signs were there. The footage existed. The fear had been visible. But the illusion of the perfect life on camera had hidden a reality that would soon shock the entire world. Gabby Petito's story was no longer just about travel or social media. It was about what happens when abuse hides behind smiles, and when red flags go unseen until it's too late.
At the end of August 2021, something was wrong. Gabby Petito, who regularly spoke with her family, suddenly went silent. Her mother, Nicole Schmidt, noticed it immediately. The messages that did come felt strange, short, vague, and unlike Gabby's usual tone. One final text arrived on August 30th, mentioning Yosemite National Park. Even though Gabby was believed to be in Wyoming, that message would later raise painful questions. Days passed. Calls went unanswered. Messages were left unread. By September 1, 2021, Brian Laundrie returned alone to his parents' home in Northport, Florida, driving the same white Ford van the couple had been traveling in together. Gabby was not with him. Brian did not contact Gabby's family. He did not report her missing. He did not explain her absence. Instead, he remained silent. As panic grew, Gabby's parents repeatedly tried to reach Brian and his family. They received no response. On September 11, 2021, with no contact from Gabby for over 10 days, her family reported her missing to police. That was the moment the case exploded into national headlines. The story of a young, smiling travel blogger who vanished during a cross-country trip captured America's attention. News outlets interrupted programming. Social media erupted. Millions of people began asking the same question: where is Gabby Petito? Police quickly focused on Brian Laundrie. He was named a person of interest, not a suspect, but his behavior raised serious concerns. He refused to speak with investigators. His family hired a lawyer. The silence became louder than any confession. Within days, the FBI joined the investigation. Search teams spread across Wyoming, focusing on the Grand Teton National Park area, where Gabby was last known to be. Volunteers searched trails, drones scanned terrain, canine units combed through forests. Social media users analyzed every Instagram post, every video, every timestamp. One YouTube travel couple reviewing their footage discovered something chilling: the white Ford van parked near Spread Creek in Wyoming on August 27th. That tip would become crucial. On September 19, 2021, after weeks of searching, authorities made a devastating announcement. Human remains had been found. The body was identified as Gabby Petito. The coroner later ruled her death a homicide caused by manual strangulation. Gabby had been killed weeks before her body was found. She was alone, far from home, in the wilderness she once loved. The nation mourned. Vigils were held across the country. Candles were lit. Flowers piled up at memorials. Millions of people who had never met Gabby felt connected to her story because it represented something terrifyingly familiar: a young woman trapped in a toxic relationship. Warning signs missed. Help that came too late. As grief turned to anger, attention shifted fully to Brian Laundrie. But before police could question him further, Brian disappeared. On September 17th, just days after Gabby was reported missing, Brian's parents told police they hadn't seen him for days. He had gone hiking in a nearby nature reserve and never returned. Once again, the country watched as the search intensified, this time for the man believed to know the truth. For weeks, helicopters circled swamps, officers searched thick marshland, media vans lined streets. The Laundrie family faced intense public scrutiny, with protesters gathering outside their home demanding answers. But answers did not come. The disappearance of both Gabby and Brian deepened the mystery and frustration. Many questioned how Brian was allowed to leave. Others asked why the warning signs seen in Utah hadn't been treated as serious danger. By the end of Chapter 2, one thing was clear: Gabby Petito's story was no longer just a missing person case. It had become a national reckoning. A story about domestic abuse, about silence, about systems that fail young women, and about a life taken too soon, leaving behind heartbreak, outrage, and a demand for justice that would not fade. As America mourned Gabby Petito, the search for Brian Laundrie intensified. The man last seen with Gabby had vanished into the swamps of Florida, leaving behind only silence, suspicion, and a family unwilling to speak. Protesters gathered outside the Laundrie home, demanding answers that never came. For weeks, law enforcement searched the Carlton Reserve, a vast, swampy area filled with alligators, snakes, and dense vegetation. Helicopters circled overhead. Canine units combed the terrain. The case dominated headlines, not only because of its tragedy, but because it raised painful questions about how domestic abuse is handled in America. On October 20, 2021, authorities made another grim discovery. Human remains were found in the reserve. Dental records confirmed what many feared. The remains belonged to Brian Laundrie. Alongside them were a backpack, a notebook, and a handgun. The official cause of death was ruled a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The search for justice had ended, but not in the way anyone hoped. In January 2022, the FBI revealed the contents of Brian's notebook. Inside were written confessions in which he admitted responsibility for Gabby's death. According to the notes, Brian claimed he killed Gabby during an argument, attempting to portray the act as mercy. Investigators dismissed this narrative, stating clearly that Gabby's death was homicide by strangulation. There would be no trial, no courtroom testimony, no prison sentence. For Gabby's family, the truth came with unbearable finality. Yet from that pain, something powerful emerged. Gabby's parents made a decision. They would not allow her story to end in silence. They established the Gabby Petito Foundation, dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence, supporting missing persons, and educating young people about the warning signs of toxic relationships. They spoke publicly about the Utah Police Stop, about the missed red flags. They urged law enforcement agencies to improve training for recognizing emotional abuse and coercive control. Gabby's story became a case study in how easily warning signs can be overlooked when abuse does not fit traditional stereotypes. Across the country, discussions changed. Social media influencers, educators, and survivors began openly talking about emotional abuse, the kind that leaves no bruises but slowly erodes a person's sense of safety and self-worth. Many women recognized themselves in Gabby's behavior during the police encounter, apologizing, taking blame, minimizing their fear. Gabby's life had become a warning, and her death, a lesson. In 2022, Gabby's parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Brian Laundrie's estate, which was later settled. While no legal outcome could bring Gabby back, the acknowledgement of responsibility mattered. It affirmed what her family and millions already knew, that Gabby was a victim, not a mystery.
Memorials were created in her name. Parks planted trees. Murals were painted. Her story was told in documentaries, podcasts, and classrooms. She was remembered not just as a victim, but as a young woman with dreams, creativity, and a love for life. Most importantly, Gabby's story changed behavior. More people began checking in on friends. More families took concerns seriously. More women felt empowered to leave dangerous situations earlier. Her legacy lives on in awareness campaigns, education programs, and lives saved because someone recognized the signs sooner. Gabby Petito's journey began as a story of adventure and freedom. It ended as a global reminder of how fragile safety can be when control and violence go unnoticed. But her story did not disappear into silence. It became a voice, one that continues to speak for those who cannot. And as long as her name is remembered, her story serves a purpose: to remind us to listen, to believe victims, and to act before it's too late.